Welcome to Spirit Flow, the sacred space where we believe spiritual health is the foundation of everything. I'm Tara, and I created this show to support women who are ready to reconnect with their essence, clear energetic blocks, and lead from their soul. When we're spiritually aligned, our health, our relationships, and our purpose begin to flow with ease. Each week, we'll explore the deeper layers of healing through conversations, reflections, and multidimensional lenses: spiritual, energetic, physical, and metaphysical. Let's step into the flow. Hello, beautiful souls. So I've been noticing something really interesting lately. And look, when I say interesting, I mean it's showing up in almost every single client session I'm having right now. You know, when the universe wants you to pay attention to something, like really pay attention, that's what's happening with family dynamics right now. I'm getting those like little tingles as I say it, and I'm just thinking about it. Like, you know, that sensation when truth is really trying to land? So let's dive in together. So what I'm seeing again and again in my client sessions is family fallouts. Almost every client shares that at some point they've either drifted apart, disconnected, or had a full rupture with a family member. And so this might look like years of silence with a sibling, simmering resentment toward a parent, or subtle disconnection that never gets spoken aloud, but it's always felt in the body. And here's what I feel into every single time. We want so badly for them to be the one to change, right? Like, if only mum would just apologize, or if my brother could just see how much he hurt me. But here's the thing, beautiful souls, and this might feel a little uncomfortable at first. The path to healing these relationships, it never starts out there with them. It starts right here with us. It starts in your heart. Because when we focus inward by healing our nervous system, reclaiming fragmented parts of ourselves, and shifting our frequency, this inner work inevitably transforms the relationships around us. And sometimes reconciliation follows, and sometimes the other person remains the same. But either way, we experience freedom because our inner state is no longer dictated by that rupture. One of the biggest revelations for clients when they come in is when they realize that even siblings raised under the same roof can have entirely different experiences of childhood. And here's why this happens. No two nervous systems are the same. Each child filters experiences through their own body, their own temperament, sensitivities, and soul agreements. So for example, one child may have felt something like they were smothered, right, by a parent's control, while another experienced that same control as safety and structure. Or one may actually start to interpret silence in the home as peace, while another perceives it as rejection or abandonment. Or birth order, gender roles, cultural expectations, and even the unconscious wounds of the parents themselves all shape how each child experiences the same household. And when I guide clients into imagining what life must have felt like for the family member they're struggling with, something begins to shift. Compassion opens, and that rigid villain, victim lens starts to soften. Clients begin to see that each family member is carrying their own unresolved story, unmet needs, and survival strategies. And this doesn't excuse harmful behaviors, and it doesn't mean what happened was okay, but it does reveal the deeper truth. Each of us has been shaped by our own nervous system and soul journey. And when we recognize this, we start to gain the capacity to hold space for complexity instead of remaining locked in that blame. And I feel this so deeply because I've lived it. Growing up, I would look at my siblings sometimes and think, did we even live in the same house? And then through my own healing journey, and honestly, through working with hundreds of clients now, I've really come to understand that our nervous systems are like these incredibly, incredibly unique fingerprints. No two are the same. And in nearly every family system, there are subtle or sometimes very overt power dynamics at play. So usually this stuff starts when we're kids, long before we are actually consciously aware of them. And for many, the household was a place where authority was asserted through control, through comparison, or unspoken hostility rather than through this empowerment, collaboration, and unconditional love. And when children are raised in environments where expression is not welcomed or is met with dismissal, punishment, or withdrawal, they adapt by silencing parts of themselves. And these are what we call survival strategies. And these survival strategies, including like people pleasing, perfectionism, shutting down, overachieving, or rebelling, becomes deeply imprinted in the nervous system. And so what starts as a way to stay safe in childhood turns into what we call a repeating pattern in adulthood. And it often shows up in relationships, in workplaces, and even within the way we relate to ourselves. I actually remember working with one client who described her childhood home as feeling like she was walking on eggshells constantly. So her nervous system learned that to be safe, she had to be small, she had to be quiet, and she had to be perfect. And now at 35, she's still shrinking herself in every relationship. And so that little survival strategy that kept her safe as a kid, it's running her adult life. And this is what I mean when I talk about those early imprints. Our bodies remember everything. Now, this might sound a little woo-woo, but stay with me. Every family has its own energetic signature, it's like a baseline vibe that everyone tunes into when they walk through the door. So some homes feel light and expansive, like that feeling when you can just breathe there. But others feel heavy, like there's this invisible weight pressing down on everyone. And here's what I've noticed in session after session. When one person shifts their energy, when they do the inner work and start carrying a different frequency, the whole family field begins to change. It's like, imagine the family energy is like this big soup pot and everyone's been adding their ingredients, their fears, their patterns, all their unhealed stuff. But when one person starts adding love instead of fear and starts adding presence instead of reactivity, what happens is the whole soup changes flavor. And I actually get tingles just thinking about it because I've witnessed this so many times. A client will do some deep soul retrieval work, calling back those parts of themselves that got lost in the childhood trauma, and suddenly their sister starts texting them differently, or their dad becomes gentler. And they didn't do anything to change those people. What they did is they just shifted their own frequency. And that's when forgiveness stops being this hard thing we have to force and starts feeling like this natural softening that just happens. Like the heart remembers how to love again. And one of the most profound truths that has emerged in doing this work is that healing is not about fixing the relationship itself. It is never about controlling outcomes or changing the other person or even rewriting the past. Instead, the real transformation comes when we turn inward to clear, to reclaim, and to recalibrate our own energy field. And when this happens, something extraordinary unfolds. Subtle yet undeniable shifts begin to ripple outward. First, the way you feel about the family member changes. It changes massively. The charge, maybe the resentment or the grief, no longer actually grips you in the same way. And you may even begin to feel a softness, where there once was this hardness around it. Then your nervous system stops reacting automatically. Old triggers lose their power because the patterns they once hooked into has dissolved. And your body can actually stay calm and centered and even present, even in the moments that used to overwhelm you. And finally, the family member begins to respond differently without you doing anything to repair the relationship. They often shift how they interact with you. And so sometimes this looks like more kindness, more openness, or just this less friction that happens in the relationship. And this change is subtle, but deeply, deeply profound. Relationships transform because you have transformed. You no longer carry that same frequency of pain, of defensiveness, or expectation. And so the energetic dance between you naturally rearranges itself. And I literally get goosebumps when I witness this happening. You can feel it in the room, this shift from contraction to expansion. And sometimes clients will say, I'm getting tingles, or something just released in my chest. That's the frequency changing in real time. So I have to share something really personal here, because this work, it's not just what I do professionally. I have walked this path myself. So both sides of my family, my partner's family, we've had our share of fallouts and silences. And for the longest time, I thought the answer was out there, the perfect conversation, the right apology, the moment someone would finally get it. But what I discovered, and this was honestly a bit of a spiritual plot twist for me, was that the real transformation happened when I turned inward myself. So when I started doing my own nervous system work, my own soul retrieval, that's when everything began to shift. Every fallout, every rupture, every wound that arises in the family system, it's never random. And it's never just a fight or just a misunderstanding. What these are moments. And these moments act as mirrors reflecting back to us the places where our soul is calling for healing, for completion, and most of all, remembrance. So family wounds link us back in three profound ways. So first, in our own healing journey, each conflict invites us to look within. So where have I lost parts of myself? Where am I still carrying shame, fear, or resentment that belongs to another time? These are the places where soul retrieval, self-repair, and when you reclaim your personal power are really needed. The family fallout becomes the very doorway through which we can call our wholeness back. Then there's the ancestral lineage. So ruptures rarely belong to us and just us, right? They are often echoes of patterns woven through generations, cycles of control, silence, suppression, or survival strategies handed down like these invisible heirlooms, right? And when we engage with these patterns consciously, we not only heal for ourselves, but we also offer a release to the ancestors who lived it before us, and protection to the descendants who would otherwise inherit it, so our children. And finally, there is the collective shift in frequency. So on a much larger scale, every time one person shifts from force to power, from shame to love, what happens is that collective field, it's uplifted. The family becomes a microcosm of the whole. So when one heart chooses compassion over blame, forgiveness over bitterness, what happens is the entire web of humanity receives that upgrade in frequency too. So this is how we contribute to the greater movement from survival to soul and from division to unity. And when we meet these patterns with awareness, something powerful happens. The repetition stops. What would otherwise continue generation after generation, relationship after relationship, it finds completion. We no longer have to replay the same emotional stories, and instead we rise into love's frequency. And when one person rises, what happens is the whole entire family field, past, present, and future, receives the blessing. Ancestors find peace. Your children, descendants, they receive that freedom. And we ourselves stand more whole, more sovereign, and more open-hearted than ever before. And so the fallout was never the end of the story. It was always the opening into something greater. So beautiful souls, if you're carrying a family wound right now, if there's someone you haven't spoken to or someone whose name still makes your stomach tighten, I want you to know that you're not broken. The relationship, it isn't hopeless. You're just being invited into your next level of healing. And the most beautiful part, when you answer that invitation, when you turn toward your own heart with compassion, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing for generations. I feel that so deeply. I want to share to take care of yourselves. Please take care. And listen to what the family field is showing you. Until next time, I'll see you then. Bye. Thank you for sharing space with me today. If this episode resonated, come find me on Instagram at tara.hegerty to keep the conversation going. You'll find all of the resources we talked about on today's show linked in my bio under podcast resources. Until next time, remember, spiritual health changes everything.